The drama over the future of Chicago public schools took a new twist this week as CPS CEO Pedro Martinez declined an offer from the board to buy out the rest of his contract. This is the latest salvo in the maneuverings from Mayor Johnson and the Chicago Teachers Union to oust Martinez during contentious labor negotiations.
Business as usual at today's Chicago Board of Education meeting. Speculation swirled that the mayor's brand new interim board could vote to fire Martinez today. But the vote never came. Instead, board members asked Martinez about things like the district's contingency plan should incoming President Trump cut federal funding for education.
What is the risk of grants that we have always taken for granted that could be changed in a way that is very negative to our district? And so that is something we're analyzing now.
Meanwhile, the district's CFO laid out the already steep financial challenges that lie ahead.
We ended fiscal year 24 with $66 million of cash in the bank. So if you look at the size of our budget in fiscal year 25, that was 3 days worth of cash. 3 days.
CPS leaders have said the CTU's contract demands could cost a whopping $10 billion over 4 years. This week, CTU says they've moved off their initial ask for 9% yearly raises in favor of 5 to 6%. The union has sought 13,000 new positions as well. CPS's counterproposal is 4 to 5% raises. Both CTU and the Board of Education have expressed desire to get a new contract before late January, when Trump takes the oath of office and a new hybrid elected school board gets seated. Yesterday, a defiant Mayor Johnson expressed frustration with the lack of progress.
Ain't nobody in this city, no one in this position has ever had more standing in public education than this mayor. I've taught in our schools, or send my children to these schools, and I'll be doggone if someone tries to reduce my power after the people of Chicago voted me to transform this city.
And joining us now with reaction is Paul Vallas, of course, former CEO of CPS and two-time mayoral candidate in the recent cycle, losing by a small margin to current mayor Brandon Johnson. Mr. Vallas is now a policy advisor with the libertarian-leaning Illinois Policy Institute. Good to see you.
Nice to have me.
All right, so when you look at the constant maneuvering to remove a CPS CEO, Pedro Martinez, is this a power grab from CTU to get someone in there that'll do their bidding?
You know, it is, but it's also a temper tantrum. I think Stacey Davis Gates, the union president, promised her supporters, particularly her far left supporters of the world, 9% pay raises a year over the next 4 years. Investments in climate change, support for the homeless, etc.
13,000
That's
positions.
right. Yeah, 13,000 new positions. And incidentally, the school district already has one position, full-time position, for every 7.5 kids. So you have to understand. And they have 22,000 non-teaching employees in the Chicago Public Schools. Incidentally, that's 10,000 more non-teaching employees than you have Chicago police officers.
What they're saying is they want investment in neighborhood schools to be at the level of the top quality schools, art teachers, librarians, social workers. What's wrong with that?
Well, first of all, when you have one employee for every 7.5 students, the fundamental question is, why don't they have that now? Look, only about 54% of the money that goes to the Chicago Public Schools ever finds its way into the local schools. You have over 7,500 administrators and central office employees and regional employees and what they call citywide staff who are not necessarily assigned every day to the schools. And again, so the schools are getting shortchanged by the central offices when it comes to the allocation of additional resources. But look, Stacey Davis Gates wants more members. She wants more union dues because that translates into more political power. As I mentioned, since 2019, since COVID, despite the fact that the schools lost 10% enrollment and saw a 46% increase in per pupil funding, they've added 9,000 additional employees.
And a lot of that increase coming from federal COVID relief money that we know is running out now, which is part of the reason that they're facing a giant budget deficit even without a new contract. Martinez has said no to this ask for a $300 million short-term loan that CTU wants, that the mayor wants to help fund this shortfall. Is that the right move to say no to that?
Oh, absolutely. And plus, it's not going to be nearly enough. They probably need about $1 billion a year to fund the contract. Even the contract that might be negotiated that reflects what the school district has offered. Their demands, the teacher union demands, exceeded $10 billion. The school district's counteroffer will cost taxpayers over the next 4 years $3 billion. And where's the money going to come from there? I mean, clearly, the school district is going to raise property taxes again this year, as they have had in past years.
Well, and there's only a limit to how much they can raise.
That's right.
They're at that limit. They raise it at the limit every year. So legally, they can only raise it so much. They can't just go above that.
I think their objective here is to pass a contract. Clearly, even the district's contract is not going to be affordable. That's going to really put pressure on the city to provide more money. Of course, they're going to try to raid the tax increment financing dollars. And incidentally, that's kind of a short-term solution, not a long-term solution. And if you remember, I think Gates and CTU leadership really felt that Pritzker was going to come to their rescue.
And he said repeatedly, there is no more state money.
That's right. And he said no, because they were asking him for another $1 billion. And, of course, for him to give Chicago Public Schools $1 billion, he's got to put about $4 billion into the formula.
What do you make of the fact that the mayor's hand-picked school board resigned? He quickly, hastily appointed this interim board of supporters, and we know there was a scandal around one of the members that had to leave.
Right.
We have an elected school board or a hybrid board coming in January. The ones that are elected already won their races, and they're saying, hey, don't do anything big. We're taking over. Do you agree that this interim board shouldn't do anything?
I agree that the interim board should not do anything. I think they should wait until they have the fully elected board. Let me point out that the teachers union ran 10 candidates for those board seats. I think they won 3 or 4. So I think they fear that when the remaining board members are up for election, they delayed the election of the full board until after Johnson's first term. And so hopefully, or his last term, I should say, or his only term.
The current term.
The current term, sorry about that. But anyway, I'm not trying to make predictions. But the bottom line is they don't want to do that. They want to control events. What is going to happen is they're going to pass a contract that is unaffordable. And then the pressure is going to be on the state, as it has been so much in the past. And the pressure is going to be on the city to come up with more money. The state
that has a $3 billion budget deficit.
That's right, a $3.2 billion deficit, a projected $22 billion 5-year deficit. So they're not going to have the money. And let me point out that the city itself is facing a massive budget deficit. And right around the corner next year, the CTA is passing the mother of all budget deficits. That their deficit after COVID money runs out will equal about 25% of the budget.
Oh, by the way, you have an incoming president that has talked about slashing lots of government programs and federal funding, much of which could come to cities like Chicago.
Yeah,
this is bad news fiscally on every front.
And a president they're already attacking before he's ever taken office. I mean, at the end of the day, imagine where the state and the city would have been without the massive infusion of COVID money since 2019.
I want to, you came within 3 or 4 percentage points of becoming mayor here. This mayor is currently polling at about 15%. Extremely unpopular. Does that give you impetus to maybe want to seek out that office?
No, not necessarily. Look, I want to see which candidates are going to emerge. What's really going to be important is that we get people, that does not be a beauty contest, and we really scrutinize the candidates to know where the candidates have been on issues like school funding, pension reform, public safety, etc., and transparency and honesty in government, and what their specific recommendations are. But there's going to be a flood of candidates, and I'm certainly not contemplating a race.
All right, not contemplating right now. We have many years to watch that flood of candidates declare and run. And Paul Vallas, I should mention that we did invite CTU President Stacey Davis Gates. We did not hear back. Paul Vallas, thanks for joining us.